aboard, everybody. Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital. Here with you on a Friday. A little late this week doing our Jets report, but why not? I mean, we've got a preseason game tonight to talk about. There was preseason action in the NFL last night, all to kind of break down, but we're going to dig in here on all things green and the New York Jets. We are presented by our friends at Northeast Roofing Professionals. Today's video brought to you by our friends at the Floral Gardens, part of the Allen Floral Group, where you can order flowers from anywhere in the central New York area. So go see our friends at the Allen Floral Group. It's allenfloralgroup.com. All right, without further ado, let's bring him in, our Jets insider from the Jake Asman Show and ESPN New York, the one, the only, Jake Asman. What's up, Jake?
What's up, guys? Jet game day, baby. Preseason football. Nothing like it.
Feels good, right? Guys hitting each other. I don't care if I don't know some of the names. I love seeing guys hitting each other. I love seeing Jeremiah Love roaming the countryside last night for the Arizona Cardinals. So plenty to talk about. I mean, let's start with that. The excitement of preseason, and what is it that Jets fans should be looking to watch here in tonight's lid lifter for the Jets?
Well, you're going to see the starters. The question is for how long, how many drives, how many reps. But I think you're going to see both the starting offense and Geno Smith, of course, and the starting defense, which means David Bailey making his NFL debut in the preseason. So the biggest thing you want to see, and this is for every team, you don't want anyone to get hurt in any of these games. That's always devastating, regardless of who the player is. So no injuries is what every team is rooting for. From a Jets standpoint, what does the offense look like? Are they able to get the ball to Garrett Wilson? Are they able to get A.D. Mitchell involved? It's the first time Garrett and A.D. Mitchell are going to play in a game together, if you think about it. So I'm just curious to see kind of what it looks like, and I'm sure it'll be very vanilla, and they're not going to expose everything in a drive or two. But I'm curious to see what the offense looks like, how the tackles hold up against the Bucs, and specifically defensively. I mean, all the talk in camp and even during these joint practices has been about big number 31. So let's see if David Bailey can keep it rolling tonight in an actual game against Tampa Bay.
Although that's apparently a little polarizing on your show, Jake Asman, on how well David Bailey has done, because I watch some shows and David Bailey can walk on water. I watch other shows and apparently has concrete blocks tied to his feet.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? I mean, I love Robbie Sabo. He's taking some heat from some Jet fans online for basically saying that, yeah, Bailey's been good, but don't put him in Canton yet. And it's been a funny back and forth with him and my listeners over that. But look, I mean, all the signs early are positive with this player. He's been better against a run than most expected him to be to this point. And he's made plays rushing the passer, which is why he was drafted number 2 overall. So I rather hearing about all his productivity than not hearing anything and then having to be like, well, it's practice, so it doesn't matter. No, you rather him look the part of the number 2 pick. And so far, so good there.
Let me get this one in here, Jake. And I've been trying to confirm this, and we were able to, I think I was able to confirm it on social media with some big accounts. It appears the Bucs will be resting their starters after the 2 joint practices. Jets are going to be playing their guys. And I was afraid of this, Jake, because this feels like a lose-lose scenario. So if the Jets starters go right down the field and score, they should. It's the Bucs backups. If they don't, that means that the Jets are going to catch hellfire. Look at this team. They can't even score these Bucs backups. So, when you're looking at that dynamic, Jake, is it a lose-lose? Because if they get a touchdown, that's what they were supposed to do.
Yeah. I mean, look, people will come up with whatever they want to come up with. So you're not wrong. I just think the eye test will tell us, some stuff tonight. What we want to see, are guys comfortable out there, especially the young players. Like, I'm not really worried about, Demario Davis or Minka Fitzpatrick, whether or not they look good or not. Who knows if those 2 guys in particular will even play, or they're just, 2 veterans, they get the rest day. We'll see. You could spin it however you want to spin it. The rule of preseason is always, if your player you like does well, that's awesome. He's going to be great. If he struggles, it's preseason. It doesn't matter. So whatever you need to win your argument is there for you in the preseason.
Jake, Paul's just mentioning the joint practices. So let's talk a little about that for a couple of days of banging helmets with the Buccaneers in practice. And, they were seeing some of the starters. How does that benefit a team these days? I know my Giants aren't going to do it. And for a couple more weeks, they're going to get the Miami Dolphins in a joint. But what do you make of those joint practices and how much they actually help teams?
I think they matter. I've spoken with coaches over the years who say they feel like they can get more of it a joint practice than a preseason game, because it's just nice to see a different opponent. I mean, at this point, the Jets have had 10 practices just against themselves, and you finally get to see a different color jersey, and you get a chance to kind of really test where you're at, and you get to simulate scenarios that might not exist in a preseason game. And with guys not playing that much in the preseason, who knows if you even get the opportunity to work on, hey, holding the lead late in the fourth quarter, offense is driving down the field to try and go and win the game and vice versa. So there's just things you could simulate in a joint practice environment you don't necessarily get the chance to do in a preseason game. And while you could do it in normal practice, now you're going up against a different team, different schemes. I think they're super valuable. So I like the fact the Jets, under Aaron Glenn and then previously with Robert Saleh, have embraced doing joint practices against different teams.
Jake, you just explained the rules, and I agree. That's how they work. That if the players we like do well, okay, let's put them in the Hall of Fame, baby. But if they struggle, what are we talking about? It's preseason. It doesn't matter at all. So with that being said, seeing a couple of these young quarterbacks, Drew Aller for Pittsburgh, Carson Beck last week, light it up. Are you ready to put Cade Klubnik in the Hall of Fame if he dices it up tonight on the Bucs defense? Are you ready to overreact, Jake, to some Cade Klubnik action?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we got to keep up with all the fans of rookie quarterbacks around the league. I mean, Steelers fans think they have the second coming of Ben Roethlisberger after Drew Aller last night. Raiders fans ready to put the gold jacket on Fernando Mendoza. I mean, you know how this goes, right? Carson Beck was all the talk in the Hall of Fame game. So, yeah, if Cade Klubnik looks good, I'll be chubbing for Club like every other Jet fan, and we'll be excited to watch him, in the other two preseason games because he needs reps. Look, they're serious about letting him be QB2, so I'm a little nervous about that, but we'll see how he looks tonight. He's going to get a lot of opportunities, I'd imagine.
Jake, quick follow on that. You had Brian Costello of the New York Post, of course, Kaz, on ESPN New York a couple weeks ago, and you asked him the question, what's the earliest you could see Cade Klubnik coming in if you throw, injuries out the door, obviously? When's the earliest? He said November at the earliest. Let's just play around here for a second. What if he lights it up in the preseason, in all of these games? Is there any way the Jets go, now, wait just a minute here. Seahawks signed Matt Flynn. He was supposed to be the guy. Then this Russell Wilson kid took the job away from him despite everything that they had said all offseason. Is there any chance that Cade just looks phenomenal? Sometimes you just hit the rookie jackpot in the draft. What would he have to do for that to even be a conversation? Or is that conversation at 0% for you, Jake Asman?
I think it's 0. I just don't think he could do anything in preseason games to win the job over Geno. They promised him the job. Geno, by all accounts, has been better in training camp. Klubnik lighting up backups, I just don't think he's going to do enough. Now, maybe you could draw parallels to the Giants situation last year with Dart, where Dart looked better than Russell Wilson, but they promised Wilson the starting job, and they were at least going to try it with him for the first couple of weeks. Maybe if Klubnik is as good as Dart looked last year, and we're starting to hear buzz about how high the Jets are on Klubnik, then if the Jets get off to a poor start like the Giants did last year, they could pull the plug and go to Klubnik early. But again, these are extreme examples, and Dart was a first-round pick the Giants traded up for. Cade Klubnik was a fourth-round pick, so that's probably the only thing I could come up with where maybe a lot sooner than most of us expect to actually see Klubnik, barring injury, he can get into the game.
Jake, I don't think I've ever asked you, but obviously this time of year and as we get into the early part of the season, fantasy football is a big piece of what the fans are into. It's part of what Paul was just talking about, how, fans start going nuts, when somebody performs, Jeremiah Love breaks a couple of runs, all of a sudden he goes from the third round to the end of the first round because people just go bonkers. Do you participate in some fantasy leagues? If so, what is your take on what happens in the preseason and how it might affect you coming up to your fantasy drafts? I'm curious about the Jake Asman strategy here coming out of preseason football.
So I only play in one fantasy league, and I've been in this league now for 8 or 9 years with my college friends. It was funny. We had our fantasy football annual meeting last night to set the draft date, and we voted on new rules. I think we might be shifting to a dynasty league, so that's going to change everything with how we draft this year if we make that plunge. We have a final vote on this weekend, so I'll keep you guys posted there. My team was so bad last year, yet I actually made the championship. We got hot at the right time. We got killed in the finals, but my team was total ass. So I was like, it was so bad. I forgot who was even on it because it was a keeper league. So I was going back and I'm like, how did this team get to the finals? We were awful. So to answer your question, Chip, yes, I play fantasy. And basically the only thing I look at in preseason is just injuries. We do our draft as late as possible. So hopefully you don't get screwed if you take a player and then they get hurt in the preseason. So our draft is Labor Day evening. So that's how late in the calendar we're doing it.
We used to do it the night before the season started. We have pushed it back now into Labor Day weekend, but we literally did the night before. You talk about the latest. We're going to know every injury, every update, every last preseason iteration so on and so forth. Go ahead, BG.
And by the way, as the commissioner of that league, this isn't an online draft. This is we have a draft board at a bar, and everyone's picking their things. And I have to take this big, massive board, like you're like one of those psychopaths with all the rubber bands. You're trying to connect the dots. I throw that on my living room wall, and I'm just like, all right. So Jake Asman took this guy, and I'm inputting it all 250 picks into the computer one by one the night before so everyone could set their drafts. Good Lord. But we are committed to the bid. We're committed to the bid. So that's it for the world of fantasy football. Quick follow on that fantasy football conversation, Jake. Your dynasty draft may change all of this. Again, we're on pins and needles to hear the updates of
seventh pick in the draft, half point PPR league. So I'll take all the fantasy advice you guys have because I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with that pick.
Well, excellent. Well, the question is going to be like normally, and Jake, me and you unfortunately know this, that Jets in fantasy football have not gone in they have not been mutually together for a while because the Jets offense has stunk. And so that's been going on. But there's some buzz about Garrett Wilson. There's some buzz about Breece Hall. There's some buzz about, there was about Kenyon Sadiq and the tight end situation. So do you believe that hype up that seems to be happening this offseason, where it's been dormant for a decade, is legitimate and some of these guys can be fantasy viable guys? Or perhaps is this just, again, some hubbub now and then it just evaporates, it just disappears, the grains of sand fall from our hands and there's no fantasy football action at all worth discussing here for the Jets offense?
Yeah, I mean, the year they had Rodgers, like I had Breece in one league and I still did more than one. I went out of my way to get Garrett, and you just get burnt by just trusting the Jets in fantasy football, unfortunately. I mean, I had Greg Zuerlein as my kicker a couple years ago, and he was still good before that final season. It's hard, man. Do I think those guys are going to be incredibly productive? I do. I don't know where they're projected to go in fantasy. So when in doubt, I say, unfortunately, till proven otherwise, avoid drafting Jets unless you're getting great value on them. Like maybe Mason Taylor is a great value pick because people are going to think about Sadiq and they might not realize, you look at Taylor's numbers, they weren't anything special. He was pretty good last year with limited opportunities. He's going to get a big role with Sadiq probably learning the offense coming back from this injury. Maybe Kenyon Sadiq, you don't draft him, but you take Mason Taylor. So that's kind of where you could use your knowledge of your team to maybe try and find some value later on with that type of example.
And Jake, before we go to break, I think I saw it on Twitter. I didn't make sure I saw it correctly. You and RotoWire, there's a little combo platter there.
Yeah, they sent me their draft guide, so I am going through it right now. They got all the rankings, so I like to just solicit as much feedback and opinions as possible. So RotoWire and we linked up, and we're gonna have a draft guide through them that I'm gonna be able to dive into. So I'll be hopefully this time next week way more educated on fantasy because now the prep is on, baby. We got the draft day. I got the pick. Might be a dynasty league now, so I got to start figuring all this stuff out.
Well, every Friday, Jake, during football season, actually starting in another week, we're going to be doing a live show, an abbreviated show on Fridays with Joe Bartle from RotoWire. Joe has been with us for years. He participates in our league. He's going to be in our digital league this year as well, where we're giving away one of those WWE belts. I'll show you that after the break, what we're giving away to the winner. They're going to get to keep it, Jake. It'll be theirs forever. So if you're looking for fantasy advice, tune into our show on Fridays about 11:15 every Friday. We'll do a bit with Joe Bartle.
3:15.
Allow people 3:15. I'm sorry. Thank you. Where Joe's going to take questions. We ask him stuff about our players and our leagues and razz each other. It's quite a bit of fun, and Joe is really, really good sport about it. So he's been awesome in giving fantasy advice. And frankly, we don't always agree with him either, Jake. Sometimes we disagree with Bartle, and I go at it with him about, I don't think that's happening. So it's really, really fascinating the way we have our little fantasy discussion each and every week. This is the Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital. We are inside the New York Jets. We are presented by Northeast Roofing Professionals today. Today's video brought to you by our friends at the Floral Gardens. You can find them at allenfloralgroup.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. You see the link right there. Quick break. We'll hear from our friends at Floral Gardens. Then I want to ask Jake about a Jets legend who wants to coach for another New York team. What's up with that? We'll visit when we return. Stick around. All right, we are back inside the Jets. Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital at MC Show Digital. All right, Jake, let me ask you. Boy Green knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes.
Legendary Jet Darrelle Revis came out, I think it was yesterday, but in the last couple of days, and said
this week,
he
for
would
sure.
like to coach with Jim Leonard, the defensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. An interesting thing. And of course, Revis is a Jet. You'd think if he wants to get into coaching, why wouldn't he want to do it with the Jets, the team that he spent most of his time with? So give me your thoughts about Darrelle Revis wanting to become a coach, and then what is that strong connection you think he has with Jim Leonard that makes him want to coach with Leonard? Very fascinating.
Yeah, I'm surprised Revis wanted to go into coaching because, coaches, you don't get paid nearly as much as Darrelle did when he was a player, and it's a lot of work, as everyone knows. A lot of hours go into it, and Revis just never felt like someone that I could picture coaching, so I was a little surprised. I do know that him and Leonard obviously got along great, so I hope it was more so like joking around, like, hey, if you need a secondary coach, call me. Because seeing Revis wear Bills gear after he already won a Super Bowl with the Pats as a player, I don't know if I can handle that. So I really hope he was just, showing support to a former teammate and nothing more than that.
Well, I'll tell you this, Jake. I don't know if you remember this, but I wrote a piece about it because this news came out. It was Tim Graham of The Athletic was doing an interview with Revis. He was just trying to get some quotes for Jim Leonard and talking to him. And then Revis started going into this potential job thing, and he completely changed his story and made it about that. And Jake, you had Darrelle Revis on the show 3 years ago. And this summer, you had me go back through it, and I was cutting up clips from the interview. You asked him if he would want to get into coaching. I pulled the quote for my story. He gave you a lot of pushback. Like, yeah, everyone says I should want to be a coach, but he basically said the Michael Jordan line that Michael Jordan makes a shot in practice, and then someone goes, "How'd you do this?" He's like, "I don't know, I'm Michael Jordan." So how am I going to tell people how to be Revis?
Right.
That sounds very difficult. And 3 years later, whoa! And suddenly he wants to be a coach. And by the way, I read the story for The Athletic. You said hopefully he's joking. He had a direct quote: "I am not joking. I am dead serious. And I'm an empty nester. His 2 kids are in college." And he says, "I've got time on my hands." And then he was talking up what better? The Bills have a new stadium and stuff. And it made me sick.
Ugh, I hate hearing this because I didn't read the story. I only saw the headline. And who's the Bills secondary coach? I'm sure Leonard hired someone good already. You could just add Revis to the staff now in August.
Yeah, but here's the thing I don't get, Jake, and he also did it with you, and I assume that this is how he must really feel. You either you or he brought up the fact that it sort of sucks. He went to the Patriots and he went there for 1 year. He just happened to help them win a Super Bowl, and he was an All-Pro that year, and all kinds of wonderful things. And you said something to the effect of and I'm paraphrasing here, that man, it's great that no matter what, you're a Jet. And he gave you a rib about, well, I do enjoy my time with the Patriots, and I was like, oh, this is disgusting. And now he's doing this Bills thing.
I know.
What next?
I know.
God,
great.
man.
Look, Revis, great player. Bit of a Nas, though. Bit of a Nas in that interview. Now, that was a couple of years ago, so maybe he's different now. I haven't interviewed Darrelle since that interview you're referencing there, but I was like, come on, man. I'm traveling to Canton to go watch you get inducted into the Hall of Fame. I don't want to hear that. Oh, yeah, I loved my time with the Pats, too. Just pander for the audience. That's all Jet fans watching this, Darrelle.
Speaking of
lie to me.
Speaking of former Jets, this guy's still playing. Quinnen Williams got himself a fat contract extension with the Cowboys. So give me your thoughts on that. Is this going to be worth the money when it's all said and done, or are the Cowboys going to be living in the temple of regret?
A lot of money. I don't think the Jets ever wanted to invest that in Quinnen, given the state of their team. And by the time they're ready to contend, are you still getting prime Quinnen Williams? But he went there, and he clearly was motivated to be playing for a contending team, and he played great. He looked like the guy that we saw with the Jets when the Jets were really humming defensively. So if he plays like he did with the Jets in 22 and 23 and what he did in the however many games he played with Dallas, then he's worth that. It's just a question of over the course of the next several years, does he remain one of the best? That's a position where you can play a very long time at a high level, and I think Quinnen, great guy, great work ethic. So I understand why the Cowboys did it. I mean, you traded a second and a first rounder for the guy. You can't have him be unhappy, and you can't not have him sign long term. So there's always a risk with it, but they made their decision to do that the second they traded the Jets what they did. So this to me was a fait accompli once that happened.
Do you think there's any regret from the Jets side of hey, man, seeing this contract? Because that would have had to happen eventually with his contract if he would have stayed a Jet and they wanted to keep him long term, which would have been the reason not to trade him, obviously. Do you think they have any regret about that?
I don't think so. I think given where the Jets were, they were 0-7. Quinnen wanted out in the first place. Like, they got a first rounder and a second rounder. And the way Muji structured the deal, where the first rounder is the better of two from Dallas or Green Bay, and it's this year in a year where they obviously need a quarterback, and just the general consensus is the 27 talent in the draft is better than this most recent year. How could any Jet fan not like the return? Again, you got to now hit on the pick, so we'll see what Muji does. But in the moment, I thought they got way more for Quinnen than I was expecting. So I don't have any regrets at this point.
Jake, last one for me. You mentioned a little earlier the receivers finally having a chance to play together. The Jets managed in one of those trades to bring over, A.D. Mitchell. Yeah. And A.D. Mitchell has really looked good in camp. You've mentioned him several times. You've had some other Jets insiders mention him as well. So what will it mean to Garrett Wilson to now have a guy to work alongside him, and how could that make the Jets passing game maybe look a little different this season?
What I like about AD is he's a guy that really is a vertical threat and can stretch the field. I don't think the Jets have had that really in a wide receiver since Robbie Anderson, if you think about it. Like someone who's like really like just an athlete that could go down the field and take the top off the defense, 4.3 kind of speed. That should open things up for Garrett, who could kind of run a lot of different routes on the route tree. He could play inside. He could play on the outside. I think he'll be using the slot a lot in motion under Frank Reich. So I'm excited to see some of that, hopefully, this evening. I just think the Jets have never had under, this current, core of players, Garrett, Brees, etc., this type of skill level and the offensive line to complement it. And look, they had Rodgers, but they didn't have the O-line for him. Or they had Rodgers, but they didn't really have enough at tight end. Or you had Nate Hackett as the play caller. I at least look at this team and go, Gino's a professional. Frank Reich, no matter how much he has left, has to be someone who could just be competent calling plays. Good O-line, skill players we like. They should be a functioning offense this year. This should be the best offense Garrett Wilson's played in his NFL career. That's kind of how I view it.
Jake, or is it Chosen Anderson or Robbie with a Y or with an Robbie IE Chosen? Or Sun God or well, anywho. But speaking of the receiver room, Jake, I this is what I need to know. Okay, it's been apparently the summer of Isaiah Williams. Is Isaiah Williams just balling out and like, hey, that looks pretty good, and Omar Cooper Jr. is just staying steady, but Isaiah Williams is rocket shipping, so we're overreacting to that? Or really, is it Isaiah Williams arrow up and Omar Cooper Jr. arrow down? Because there's been sort of a social media debate about what's really going on in that wide receiver room for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not concerned at all in the slightest that Omar Cooper Jr. is – a wide receiver for. He's a rookie. Let's see him in some game action here. He'll probably play, with the backups tonight, making his debut. They'll give him some reps after the starters are done. So I'm very excited to see him. I heard he got off to a great start in camp, and Rich Cimini made this point on our Jets Collective pod. Once they started maybe overloading a ton of info and different things they're asking of the receivers, he hit that rookie slog. Apparently, Sean Jefferson, his wide receiver coach, said. So I think it's part of the natural progression. Good for Isaiah Williams that he's taken advantage of his opportunities. The Jets actually having too much depth, I think, has concerned fans. And it's like, this is actually a positive Isaiah Williams story, not a negative Omar Cooper Jr. story. But you don't get the benefit of the doubt when you're the Jets. So I get it, but I'm not concerned at this point.
Jake, before we let you go, plug away the Jets Collective or anything else that's going on in the life of Jake Asman these days.
Yeah, Jets Collective once a week until the season starts. And then we're going to go to twice a week at some point, probably Tuesday, Thursday night. So be on the lookout for that. And then my personal show every single day, 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. We're talking Jets. And then doing a ton of radio the next few weeks as well. Tomorrow morning, 9 to noon, talking Jets Bucks on ESPN New York, Giants and the Vikings. We're going to see Dart tomorrow, Jim. Sounds like we will. So
we'll be very cagey. Very cagey.
Yeah. There'll be a ton of things to talk New York sports. So I'm on the radio tomorrow and then every day on YouTube talking Jets as well.
Fantastic. Jake, always appreciate your time, my friend. Have a great weekend.
You got it, guys. Go Jets.